What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizont's podcast filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. In this episode, we are going to be talking about the NC State Wolfpack for our college football preview series. Let's hop right into the stars. At quarterback, Grayson McCall, a transfer from Coastal Carolina. Brilliant passer of the football, struggled over the last couple of years, but a winner nonetheless, and a big upgrade at quarterback for NC State. Then, next I want to talk about the guy who's going to be throwing the football to the most, Kevin Concepcion, maybe Concepcion, not sure, but regardless, this guy is a bona fide superstar at wide receiver. Great route runner, 1,000 scrimmage yards last year, and that's exactly what I'm expecting again this upcoming season. On the defensive side of the football, Aiden White, great corner. He plays the flats like nobody else that I've seen. I think he's going to be a phenomenal guy this year for this NC State team. And then at safety, strong safety, you've got Devin Boykin. Good run stopper, had a ton of tackles last year. I expect he's going to be even more involved in this defense this year. Next thing I want to talk about is a couple of storylines before we get into the losses and additions and the record prediction, of course. Dave Doeren is a slept-on head coach in college football. He has 7 8+ win seasons at NC State. And he has a chance to do something that I don't think anyone has really talked about. And this is a Plizont freezing cold take, so cold that it's boiling hot. That's take over the state of North Carolina as the premier football program. Now, yes, there is North Carolina in the state of North Carolina, and Mac Brown has done a good job, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be retiring in a couple of years. And NC State has won the last 3 rivalry games versus North Carolina, and on top of that, for the first time I can remember, NC State out-recruited North Carolina in the recruiting class and the transfer portal combined. That is extremely impressive, and I think if they keep that up, we're going to see more dominance from Dave Doeren and this NC State team. They are 7-4 against the Tar Heels since he took over as head coach. And as long as he's there, I'm confident that that will continue to keep rising in the win column. Next, I want to talk about there was a massive upgrade at quarterback. I'm honestly not even sure who the quarterback was last year. Off the top of my head, I didn't write him down or anything, but it was god-awful. He had less than 200 yards in the air every single game. And not only that, but NC State's running game was pretty much non-existent. There was only one running back over 300 yards, and he had 309 yards. Everybody else, nowhere to be found. The leading rusher from this team, I believe, was Kevin Concepcion, and he's a wide receiver. So to me, that's unacceptable. But Grayson McCall and transfer Jordan Waters from Duke really answer the call, in my opinion, in this desperate need. So now let's talk about what I think the losses and additions were for this team. The losses side of things. The heart and soul of this defense, in my opinion, Peyton Wilson, run right through him. This guy is a linebacker through and through, to be honest. When you think of like the typical linebacker, I think of Peyton Wilson. This guy is a dog, to say the least. He gets drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers, no longer with the team, obviously. The addition side of things, because that's all they really lost. That's a big loss, I get it. But the additions, Grayson McCall, quarterback, already talked about him. Jordan Waters, running back from Duke, already talked about him. You've got Justin Jolly, a tight end from UConn. Nobody talks about UConn football, but this guy had almost 600 yards receiving last year. I think that's very impressive and something to note when you've got an NC State team with such an incapable passing game from last season. That's a massive addition. On the defensive side of the ball, 2 great defensive backs to add to this stacked core and to make up for a couple of losses that, in my opinion, were depth more than they were actual starters. Donovan Kaufman, he transfers in from Auburn. And see, here's the thing about these 2 transfers. Donovan Kaufman and Jihad Carter, who transfers from Ohio State. Originally, he was from Syracuse. What I want to say about those 2 guys is they both started like 25 plus games. Donovan Kaufman has played like 1,000 snaps of football in live games. Bringing that experience in on this team is so crucial when it comes to actually playing meaningful football games, especially in November versus your rivals. Beautiful pickups there. The last thing I want to talk about is the fact that this offense can explode. I mentioned the quarterback replacement. I mentioned the running back replacement. But now you've put it all together, and there is a chance to win 10 games for the first time in the 21st century, I believe, especially under coach Dave Doeren. They've never done it with him as the head coach. They've got a chance to do it here. I think that's really important. Let's go ahead and get into the record prediction. And you know what? I'm saying they're going 10-2. They're going to get to those 10 wins. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Hosting Western Carolina as the opener for the season. That's a win, of course. Having Tennessee in a neutral site game. I want to put this on upset alert. Tennessee, I think, is like top 15 in the country. I don't know if they're going to be ready for this game. NC State could be a sneaky win here, but I will give Tennessee the benefit of the doubt. There's a slight talent disparity here, so I like Tennessee to win that game. Hosting Louisiana Tech, their program's in shambles. They lost their starting quarterback. I believe he went to Wake Forest. I don't think that they're on the opposite side of their quote-unquote downfall rebuild yet, but even if they are, it won't make a difference. Louisiana Tech loses that game to NC State. At Clemson, that is going to be the game of the year for NC State. If they win that, college football playoff and conference championship is on the line, in my opinion. But I do think they drop that. Death Valley at Clemson is very hard to play in, and I do think Clemson's got a pretty good roster. Next up, Northern Illinois at home, very similar to Western Carolina. Louisiana Tech, I'm not going to talk much about it. That's a win. Hosting Wake Forest, Syracuse. Both of those programs not nearly where NC State is at in the process of building a championship contender. NC State is on the fringe of making the playoffs. Syracuse and Wake Forest are on the fringe of making a bowl game. So I will give NC State the wins there. That's 2 more wins to add to the tally. At Cal, that is probably the 4th toughest game, maybe the 3rd toughest game on the schedule. It's really hard for an East Coast team to travel all the way out west, try to get figured out with the sleep schedule and curfew and all this other stuff. And then on top of that, have a bunch of 19-year-olds travel 8 hours in the opposite direction, get off a plane, stay in a hotel, and win a football game. But I think that NC State can do it. I'll give them the win there. Home versus Stanford, home versus Duke, 2 rebuilds, nowhere near ready for contention. Once again, NC State gets back-to-back W's. And to close out the season with a road trip at Georgia Tech, at North Carolina. At Georgia Tech could be a sneaky game that NC State could drop. Georgia Tech's got a very capable run game. They could chew clock and make this miserable, especially late in the year when it gets cold. But NC State pulls out that win, in my opinion. And then at North Carolina, the rivalry game. I like actually watching this game. I'm not even sure what the name of it is called, but very entertaining, especially over the last 3 years. And I think it continues to be entertaining when NC State wins this one again, finishes the season 10-2 in the regular season. I'm not sure it's ever been done, but I definitely know that Dave Doeren hasn't done it. That's a very positive outlook for NC State. But that's going to do it for our preview of the Wolfpack. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.